Hey everybody, my name is Shemuwel, but everyone calls me Shimmy. I am currently a fourth year political science student at the University of Central Florida, which makes me a senior. Just some kind of base things about me. I'm currently 23 years old. I recently moved out of my parents' apartment I recently moved out of my parents' house with my fiance. I am 23 years old. I live in Winter Park, so only about 20 minutes from UCF campus. I transferred from Seminole State College in Sanford, Florida, so not too far, as they mentioned, out of the honors program, and then transferred directly into the honors program at UCF through Direct Connect, which was a extremely helpful resource because as you went into Direct Connect UCF, basically when I transitioned into UCF, they pretty much sent me emails, which basically gave me all the resources I need to basically transition directly from community college to university. So that was extremely helpful. So as she kind of said, I'm kind of here to answer any questions or concerns you guys have and kind of just share my experience about what the university experience has been like, and then maybe help you guys kind of on your path.
Maybe you could start with the difference in the classes, especially class size or professor expectations, homework assignments, things of that nature, what you noticed about that.
Okay, so yeah, so definitely class size. Well, obviously, one of the greatest things about being in the honors program, whether it's at Seminole or UCF, is the honors classes are usually extremely small and extremely intimate. So even at UCF, which is the university of, what is it now, 65,000 students, every honors class I've been in has never had more than 20 students in it, usually closer to sometimes like 8 or 12. So that intimacy in small class sizes has certainly not gone away. However, when you're taking kind of more general courses, so like prereqs that are used in your major, those classes are quite large. So far, the largest class I think I've been in has been maybe 120 students at the beginning of the semester. And then by the end of the semester, there was only about 80. So still a pretty decent size. And I will say, obviously this really depends on the teacher, that the size of the class can, for some students, take away kind of that intimate aspect of learning. One of the things I've learned when I went to UCF is that a lot of the teachers really make it their goal to, even though they're in large class sizes, to really still allow every student to participate. So for example, one difference I've noticed at community college versus university, expect to be asked questions. When I was in community college, I could get away with, when you were in a class, kind of sitting in the back, not really participating, not really saying anything, kind of just doing your own thing. When you're in the courses for your major, that is a lot more difficult. The teachers aren't willing to allow you to just get away by skating by. They will call on you. They will force you to answer or to participate. So if you're someone who's not that comfortable kind of standing up in front of people, that's certainly something I would say to get used to, because as one of the great things about college is, outside of preparing you for your niche career and skills, it's trying to teach you basic interpersonal skills like communication and kind of working with other people. So definitely expect to speak up in class, expect to participate. The teachers do expect more from you outside of just academics. So like I said, a lot of times the teachers want to know, what are you doing outside of school? How are you using your major to prepare for the next step? They really are trying to make sure that the whole process is more integrated than just, here's the individual aspect we're learning for this course. They really try to make it a little more holistic. So definitely be prepared to do more academically as well as interpersonally when you're in university.
So have any of these, because I've looked into UCF specifically, that they also offer some of what you call the major prereqs as honors versions of that. Have you taken any of those too?
None of my particular honor. By the time I transferred to UCF, I had all of my prereqs out the way. So first, I didn't have to do any more prereqs. So I didn't experience any of that. However, I have had friends of mine who have been in the honors prereq courses, and I actually can say I wish some of the prereqs I got to take were at honors at university level, because there are very, very specific skills that the 4,000 and 3,000 level courses you're taking are going to require from the prereqs. And I will say that when you're in an honors course, they really make sure that you really understand those specific skills you're trying to learn. So for example, as a political science major, you're obviously supposed to understand kind of, the basics of US government, the functions, how it works, and how you can apply those skills to research methods, for example. When you're in an honors course, those teachers are going to go out of their way to make sure you understand the professional understanding on what your major is supposed to do in the professional world and how those skills can transition into the real world. So if ever you get the chance, if for any reason the way your major is, you need still have some prereq courses, I would definitely recommend doing those prereqs as honors.
Okay, and what about the larger classes that you mentioned, like 80 plus, 100 plus? How accessible were the professors in these classes? You mentioned they try to engage during the lectures, right? But how accessible are they, like, outside of class?
So in my experience, the professors are usually as accessible as you make them. So one of them, I'm sure, just like at the community college level, the professors all have office hours. I think sometimes I've had students who I've talked to, for example, who say they've never utilized a teacher's office hours. That is a mistake you do not want to make. Those office hours are there for you as a student. Outside of the few hours that the teachers have for research, the vast majority of their time is meant to mentor and advise students outside of the classroom. So make sure when you're getting your syllabus, for example, and your teacher gives you their office hours, don't hesitate. I've had a professor the first week after class, just sending them an email, introducing yourself, saying who you are, kind of giving a brief overview of why you're in their class and what you expect. That goes a long way, because after I've been messaged the teacher after the first week, when the teacher, for example, has some type of event or some type of workshop that comes up, you're then one of the first teachers they offer to ask. So for example, as a political science student, there's a lot of different research conferences and presentations that are offered around campus. And when you approach that teacher, use their office hours, let them know that you're there to learn. When they then get invited to these presentations, you're the first student they want to ask, hey, you're a really great student in class. You've been really good in your academics. You seem to have a really good grasp on what you want to do. Would you like to come to a research presentation with me and a few other students? So definitely utilize their office hours. I would say it's quite easy to get in contact with teachers. They make it known that they're there for you. So don't hesitate to contact them early, get to know them, and really get to, like I said, utilize their office hours because they're there for you.
Okay, I'm just gonna keep asking questions, but how well has UCF adjusted to, that remote learning kind of stuff, and yeah, just like the online instruction, and how are they gonna do it moving forward for the next fall, if you know anything about it?
So I would say I think they've adjusted pretty well. So for example, when the pandemic first kind of hit early in the year, there was certainly a lot of confusion. People were kind of confused as to how things were going to go. And then so early on, so in the fall of 2020, there were still about 20, for example, in my college, the political science department, about 25% of the courses were still offered in person, just with social distancing, smaller class sizes to make sure that, we could still maintain safety. And then outside of that, the great thing I've realized that what UCF has done is that they've tried to, even though we obviously have to be online, they're trying to make sure they incorporate different versions of online learning. So for example, right now in UCF, there are completely web-based courses for the people who don't really feel like they need any teacher physical interaction. You just kind of, send the syllabus through web courses. They send their emails as reminders, and it's really up to you to self-pace to get to the class. However, then they also have what are called the hybrid courses, where half of the course is taught through Zoom and an actual live lecture with the teacher. So even though you're not in person, you are still physically basically getting to talk with the teacher, interact in live session. And then they have what are they called? So what they have completely online courses. Then they have the hybrid courses where some are completely online, some are through Zoom. And then they also have certain courses where, how do you call it? There are certain, this is used like very specific niche majors where certain aspects of what you have to do, they still require service learning and stuff like that. So those things haven't been taken away. So while they're still kind of obviously making sure that the classes that are able to are mainly online, they're still providing lots of opportunities for you to still go and do things physically in a safe way, as well as doing live Zoom sessions. So even though you're online, you still get to have that kind of personal interaction with the teacher. So they definitely tried to implement a multitude of different ways so that the different ways you learn haven't necessarily been hampered. You can kind of still learn the best way that you can.
What's been your experience with resources for like internship or volunteer opportunities at UCF?
Oh, what a great question. That's literally all I'm basically working on this year. So yeah, so that's as a just something else what I would say is since you guys are all now going to be juniors and coming into seniors soon, internships are one of literally the best things I can say. I've had a few internships so far, and I'm currently working on acquiring some more. In terms of resources, I will say this is a good and a bad thing about UCF. It's such a large college that there are literally hundreds, if not thousands, of different resources for internships, fellowships, and different experiential learning. So in one way that can be bad, and that sometimes it seems so voluminous that it's a little bit hard to find. One of the best things I found is really acquainting yourself with the UCF website. They have a little search bar option on the website, and then when you search a certain term, they then kind of populate the different items to kind of narrow what you're looking for. Getting really used to the website is extremely helpful. Also, one of the things that UCF partners with is Handshake, which is kind of this program that basically allows employers and employees to kind of connect in a better way. Utilizing Handshake is probably the best aspect, because the great thing about it is that basically you can literally search it to whether it's just internships in Central Florida, throughout the country, even some that go abroad. When you are in Handshake, you're able to kind of make a profile similar like kind of a LinkedIn profile, where you're kind of able to lay out what your educational goals are, what you've done so far, and what you're looking for in the future. And then you can go on Handshake, and usually every few months they update new internship and fellowship opportunities. And then you either have the option of basically applying through the internships directly through the Handshake application. And then if for any reason the internship you're looking for requires a little more resources, Handshake will explain that to you and then provide an external link for you to get outside of the Handshake application and then go directly to the internship page to do the rest of the things. So definitely Handshake is definitely the best resource. And then the next best resource I would say is kind of going back to what I said before, getting to know your different teachers in the majors that you're looking for, because they get emails all the time about different organizations looking for interns, looking for research assistants and stuff. And like I said, if you have those good relationships with those teachers, when those opportunities come up, they're going to be like, hey, I know a great student. He's a senior in school. He's got, straight A's and this and that. And he would be a great resource for you. Would you like me to send his information over for you? So outside of Handshake, meeting with faculty and advisors and really getting to know them so that when those opportunities come to them first, you're the first person they think about.
Good to know. Thank you.
Can you speak to the differences between the honors program at Seminole and then what your experience was like once you got to the honors program at UCF?
Okay. So definitely in some ways they're not that different. In some ways they're very different. So in the ways they're not different. The way they're not different is that both of them are kind of, in my experience, kind of based off fostering a better community between you and the school. So one of the great things that, for example, when I was at Seminole is that when you're in the honors program, they're constantly pushing us to volunteer on campus, to go and help out at different ceremonies and events. So that's kind of the same way that it's here at UCF. When you're in the honors program, they're always trying to make sure anytime there's extracurricular activities that are going on campus, you're the first students they get it from. So like, for example, I often get emails from honors first about an event. And then like a day or two later, I'll then get that same email from my college because like the honors like, no, we're up on it first. So kind of just making sure fostering that community between you and providing you resources first is one of the greatest things. Also, I know when you're in the honors program, you get to often, I know in UCF, you get to pick your classes often sometimes a whole semester or two in advance of other people. That's an extremely beneficial because when the classes you want are getting filled up really early, you're able to literally pretty much all my classes, I'm always like the first 4 students in there before anyone else is even in there. So I always know I can plan my schedule ahead of time. So that's really good. The difference in what I've found in UCF versus the community college, obviously, the community college things are more kind of trying to teach you, like I said, general studies, basic interdisciplinary skills, and kind of trying to make you a more well-rounded person. Now that you're at UCF, the honors program, and as you meet with your honor advisors, they'll explain this to you. They're really trying to focus you for what you're doing after going to school. So are you going to graduate school after UCF or not? Are you planning on jumping right into industry or not? And so when you're in the honors program, your honors coordinators are going to really get to know you and try to understand where you're going in life. And then based off what you plan to do, they will then offer you resources to help you get there. So if you've talked to them early on and you explain to them, I'm trying to go to graduate school, they're going to make sure they send you all the emails about pre-graduate programs, workshops about graduate school, possibly introducing you to students who are in the graduate program to provide advice for you, versus if you say, hey, I'm trying to become a teacher right after school, that they're going to partner you with OCPS or different school boards around the country, around Florida, and try to provide you those resources to get you there. So the main difference is that at the community college, a lot of the resources are a little more general, interpersonal, kind of more standard skills, versus when you're in the university, a lot of the skills are really particularly geared towards what your plans are after graduating.
How difficult was it to adjust to the larger campus at UCF?
For me personally, that wasn't too difficult because Seminole State is a pretty large campus on its own. The campus I went to, the Sanford campus, is the largest of the campuses. So in terms of that aspect alone, it honestly wasn't too difficult. The most difficult adjustment is the literal physical size of the UCF campus is like a tiny city. And so when I first went, it literally took me sometimes like 30 minutes just to like find parking, for example. So that's something to think about, is like, you definitely, for example, if you know you're doing things on campus, try to get there early, because if you're not there early, the college or place that you're trying to get to might easily be full. So you might have to park all the way around the school and then walk the rest of the way. So in terms of travel, that's certainly something that took adjusting to. Such a physical large campus that literally you can drive miles around and still not get to where you're trying to get to. That was certainly an adjustment. But outside of that, kind of going back again to what I said, especially kind of in this day and age, because everything is so digital, really getting acquainted with the website really kind of shrinks it down, because when you're acquainted with the website and you know exactly which links to go to, you kind of know which colleges that you're already interested in, which ones you're going to be focused on. You can really kind of shrink the scope of the school. That way it doesn't seem like everything is so large and coming at you. So like, for example, one of the things I did when I went to UCF is after I knew which college I was going to go to, I knew kind of which programs I was interested in, I found all those web courses, all those web pages on the UCF site, and then I bookmarked all of those. And now all the websites that I use all the links to UCF that I use most often are bookmarked on my main page. And so for me, I found that helps, because it kind of makes me know that, yes, the whole school is very large, but the things that I'm focusing on are right here, which makes the whole community kind of seem smaller for me.
Are you involved in any organizations outside of the honors program? I know you said political science. Are you pre-law or anything of that?
I'm not pre-law. I'm the political science, American politics, and policy major. And so, like I said, this year I'm currently, as my senior year, kind of really trying to transitioning into what my career is going to be. And over the last year, I've kind of certainly had some career changes, not major changes, but career changes. In terms of involvement on campus, so I've kind of every semester or so, especially with every last year, things have kind of changed so quickly that I'm kind of often jumping back and forth between different programs. So for example, when I started UCF in the fall of 2019, I had an internship with the mayor of Orlando, and I also was in the Lead Scholars Program, which is kind of a community service-based organization where I volunteered my time at UP Orlando, which is a store in Orlando for low-income individuals to help make sure they kind of have the basic needs to meet for themselves. It's related to the honors college, but a certain portion of it. Last year, I served as an honors orientation ambassador, where actually kind of like what I did this time, I worked with incoming honors students to kind of guide them through their first class selection, kind of help them explain how you should organize your first class schedule, how you should then plan your next class schedule based on what you did for this one, and kind of get them oriented with the program. I'm also involved in Honors Congress, which is, again, tangentially related to the Honors College, but a slight different portion of it. And then outside of that, I am in the I'm in the Political Science Honor Society. So there's that. And then I'm also involved in something called Lead Scholars, which is basically for students who have a certain GPA and have been on campus for a certain amount of time to kind of build a portfolio for graduation to prepare them for the future. And then I'm also involved in pre-grad nights, which is a program specifically designed for people who want to attend graduate school. And we kind of attend workshops, meet with graduate advisors to help kind of plan for that. So kind of a little different, little things here and there that I'm still currently working on.
Do you have any overall tips on how to manage your classes as well as all of those additional things that you just mentioned? Because you sound very busy. So any tips that you have for all these students that are about to transfer?
So I will give you, this is how I prepared for it. So kind of also going back to when they were referring to transfer credit and things like that. UCF has a really good tool called My Nights Audit, or when you get into when you're accepted into the college and they have all your transcripts, you're able to go to that, you're going to go to that link and it will populate all the different classes you've taken. And then it'll line it with what your major is. And then it will tell you exactly what classes you need, what classes you don't need, how many credits you need in this section, how many you don't need in that. So one of the ways that I try to kind of keep myself sane while I'm doing everything is I try to make sure I plan my schedule usually at least 2 semesters in advance. And that's one of the benefits of being an honors student is that you're able to pick your classes early. So for example, I always, right before the semester starts, I go on to My Nights Audit, make sure, I have all my requirements met, pick all my classes for this semester and the following semester. And then after I know what class I'm going to be taking, I know what the hours of those classes are. I've looked at the syllabi and I know what those classes require. I'm then able to sit down and organize, okay, how many hours will I be at? Because that's one thing you're going to need when you're in these classes, because they are certainly a little bit more difficult. You definitely need to make sure you allocate how much time you're going to study outside of the traditional class time. Because I know, for example, some people sometimes miss that because you have the classes, for example, 2 times a week, that's kind of all you need. And you can kind of just look over your notes for class time and then prepare. You are going to need to allocate a few hours outside of your standard class time to prepare for exams and stuff like that. And so by preparing my schedule early on, I'm able to kind of start to allocate that time outside as well. The other thing I would say is specifically making sure you leave time for yourself personally outside of all your school habits. So for example, I always try for a few hours on the weekend to make sure I'm not doing anything related to school, not doing anything related to work. I'm just relaxing myself. I meditate sometimes when I'm free. I try to exercise. Definitely making sure you allocate free time for yourself outside of the academics in your work life, because if you don't, you're going to start to feel extremely stressed out. You're going to feel like you're always having things coming at you and you can never focus. So making sure you plan your schedule as early as you can in advance, allocating study time outside of your specific allocated class time, and then dedicating some time throughout the week for yourself and nothing to do with school or professional services is what I've tried to do.
Any final questions?
I have a question. Did you work at all during your college?
Yes. So when I was in Seminole, I got a job early on as a property assistant working with the auxiliary department. And I did that for about a year and a half while I was in school, working about 20 hours a week. I also worked as a peer mentor while I was at Seminole. So I served about 5 hours in an office capacity and then about 5 to 10 hours outside of that advising other students. And then when I went to UCF, I worked 2 part-time jobs. When I first started, I was working at Ross initially, and then I was working at the YMCA. And then when the pandemic hit and everything kind of went to crap, I lost one of those jobs. I then got a second job working with my father as an electrician. I also did some Uber delivery on my free time. I take paid surveys when I'm on my free time as well. And I also tutor when I'm available. So, I mean, I've done literally a handful of everything here and there, back and forth, all throughout my entire time. Throughout my entire 4 years I've been in school now, I've worked pretty much every semester.
Wow, that's good.
Yeah. You know, with everything, it's unfortunate. When one of the things that, you know, certainly after leaving community college and moving out of my parents' house and kind of really getting into adulthood, if you would like to call it, is that there's just a lot of, you know, different expenses and different things you want to do in life. And that sometimes, for example, your school financial aid is simply not enough to support you. So you're having to find that time to be able to work is certainly something you want to try to allocate in your availability as well.
Thank you.
No other questions?
No, he answered them all. Thank you very much, man.
Yes, you did a really great job. Did you always know you wanted to go to UCF? Were you considering other schools or weighing options?
There were tangentially a few different schools I had thought about. I considered going to Florida State University for a little while. I considered the University of Florida for a while. But then when I kind of sat down, kind of looked at what I was planning to do, I kind of already had actually, so to be fair, when I finished at Seminole, I took a gap year before transferring directly into UCF, where I served with City Year, which is a program, it's an education-based program which helps to serve underprivileged youth in the community. And so after doing that and having a connection to the communities that I served with, I knew that I didn't want to leave Central Florida, because I knew that whatever I ended up doing outside of me graduating, I wanted to focus my time and effort to the Central Florida community. So after graduating and serving with that organization, I pretty much knew specifically that there was no other schools. University of Florida was the one for me. Obviously, finances also played a role. When I sat down and looked at, you know, the tuition rates of different places, UCF was the most affordable university that was available. So between the community ties that I had and the finances, UCF just made sense.
So I don't know, Julian, you still got a tough decision to make. And anyone else that's not sure.
UCF rules.
Well, if you guys don't have any further questions, are you willing to share an email or anything in case they want to contact you off of here, or even if they transition this summer? Are you willing to share that maybe in the chat with them?
Oh yeah, no problem. I'm currently typing that up now.
Okay.
I'll send you guys my school email right here.
Okay.